that's one of my hot takes. I was like, we need some rated R Christian movies, bro.
Biblical creativity is the combination of two things brought together into one thing that no one has ever seen before. That doesn't mean it's a graphic. Like, everyone thinks it's, oh, I made this really cool graphic, I'm really creative. You can be, but it's not just limited to design and videos.
As you describe this, it's also giving me perspective, like what's at stake when Christian creatives don't step out and do things well.
Right.
One thing about music specifically that people always, like, I get you can use music to dishonor, but music is something that was created by God. It's one of the only things on this earth that is not of it.
Wow.
When you, how do you know that? There's music in heaven. There's nothing in heaven that was borrowed from earth. Like,
that's crazy.
David wasn't just playing and God was like, I like that, Michael. Start doing it.
Hey, take some notes, Michael.
Yes. So I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how man was able to get music, but there's music in heaven, says it in the Bible. So why shouldn't our music be better than it is right now? Not the same beats every time.
Dude,
you know,
oh my gosh.
What is that?
For real.
No offense, I like the Hispanic music, but right?
I mean, the Demon Baby was kind of bad.
The Demon Baby, yeah, the Passion. We could talk about the
I'm an adult now with my own son, and that still traumatizes me.
I gotta look away with that one.
Oh, dude.
It's insane.
Well, you know what that means, right?
What?
So the Demon Baby was basically like the devil showing.
What's up, Saintified? Welcome back to another episode. I'm Alex.
I'm Gabe.
And we are here to encourage the saints and equip believers. And we are so excited to be back with another episode. Today, we have not a special guest. We have someone that's part of our team. They were able to come in and we're excited to have them for this pod. It's a special episode. We both got to know him through Bible school and we've stayed in contact through this whole time, and he's the one that does our thumbnails and graphics on social media. Go check out our social media. But yeah, we're going to present and introduce to some of you Jeremiah Diaz.
Yeah.
Hello.
You're usually behind the camera.
I'm always behind the camera.
Yeah.
In spirit.
Yeah. This is wild, seeing you in front of the camera.
Yeah, it's a little weird, to be honest. Yeah.
Man.
I'm not.
Thanks for coming to Texas.
Of course. Was in here for videos and family and do this at the same time. So
that's what's up.
He's from Vegas, so if we have any,
I'm not from Vegas. I'm actually from Colorado, but
he really
best
loves Colorado
state there is.
Dude, tell us
besides the weed, but
other than weed,
other than that,
yeah.
But yeah, live in Vegas now. Been living there we just passed up 2 years and last week, actually 2 weeks ago.
No way.
Yeah.
Damn, time flies.
Crazy. Yeah.
Oh man, so you were born and raised in Colorado?
Born and raised Colorado. Lived there till I was 19, I think, and then moved to Dallas. Started CFNI. Met you guys. Lived there for 4 years. Then moved to Vegas.
So that makes you like 32 years old.
31.
No, okay, no, I'm
25.
25. Dude, are we all 20?
I'm 25.
I'm 25.
How long have you been 25?
Like a month.
Okay.
Me too. No.
Am I older than both of you guys?
Yeah, dude, you are.
Am I really?
Wait, you're kind of an old man.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 25, but I turned 25 in May.
Oh,
dude.
You're back to 26.
I'll be 26.
Why did I thought you were like
in May?
Our age?
Yeah, like right at our age.
I don't know. I guess we're not as close as we thought we were.
All my students at church think I'm old.
Nah, dude.
Yeah, they thought I was 30. So
we're old if you think of it. Wait, so before we talk about how old we are, I mean, we were already doing that. But so born and raised in Colorado, but then you went to Bible college because you were just like, I'm in the most weed-filled state in the planet. Let me go to Bible college. Or was it like, I love Jesus, let me go to Bible college?
Well, I had a whole plan for my life after I graduated high school, funny enough. I was going to graduate high school and then go to a place called MSU in downtown Denver. And then I was going to try and get a degree in graphic design and then try and work in a church. Honestly, there wasn't like a specific thing where I'm like,
were you like always like drawing and stuff?
I took photography in high school. And actually, now that I think about it, I remember, I took a photography class in high school and I got to learn how to use like film camera and I got to learn how to develop film. And one of the courses or like the lessons that they had was how to repair like old photos in Photoshop. So I got to learn how to use Photoshop in that. and I took a web or a class called desktop publishing and web design, and it was mostly like obviously a little bit of web stuff, but it was about like making business cards, book design, so very practical stuff. And then I learned how to use it, Photoshop in the class, like the basic tools. And then after that, I just would practice in the library during lunch on how to use Photoshop, and I taught myself the rest basically, all the way until I got a job out of it. So it was kind of nice.
All right, tell the story about how you got your current job.
Oh, my current job?
Yeah, because
I'll have to send it so you can put it as I'm talking about it. So have you guys talked about YFN on this podcast?
No,
Okay.
but you can start.
So YFN is a big youth camp in Dallas, Texas, at CFNI, Christ for Nations Institute. And it's like 5 weeks if you're working it. It's 5 weeks of summer camp, Monday through Thursday. And then it's just a big summer camp that Christ for Nations puts together for places all around Dallas and the surrounding states, basically. But I was the design lead. Pastor Micah asked if I could be the design lead after my first year at YFN, which you guys both. Yeah. So that's where I met. I think I met you at YFN.
Yeah.
I met you before YFN, I believe. For sure. That was 2019.
Oh man, stop! I feel old when you say that.
Yeah, but I did that for 2 years, and then my third year going into after I was going to graduate. So we graduated, and then it was the summer of 2021. We had Pastor Benny and Pastor Wendy speak at the leadership session. So every day there was a leadership session, and then a student session. So all the pastors and leaders would go to the one session, then the students go to the other. Anyways, Pastor Benny and Pastor Wendy were speaking at the leadership session. Funny enough, I wasn't supposed to be there. I was actually supposed to be at the other session. But Jess, one of the people, asked me hey, there's no person in the sound department. Can you just come over here and turn the mics on? No way. So I drove over there on my little golf cart, and I drove over there and turned the mics on and stuff. And I was like, I'll just stay here. And so Pastor Benny and Pastor Wendy were leading that session, and Pastor Mike had just started asking them like general questions to get to know. And he asked, what's your guys' favorite movie? And I think Pastor Wendy had said Thor Ragnarok.
No way.
And what was funny, they're really funny.
That's so wild.
And she goes, this is so stupid. She goes, or he says, why do you like Thor? He's like, because he's handsome.
No.
Basically why and so they made this whole joke about how she calls him Thor.
Yeah.
And so it was just like everyone was laughing and stuff. But me being in charge of all the photos, I had all the photos from the previous night which he had spoke. And I was like, I bet you I can find a photo and just Photoshop Thor's hammer into his hand. And so I found one, but they just kept coming back to the joke like throughout the session.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could easily put this up on the screen right
now.
now.
Dude, you're kidding me.
And so
why is the first time I'm hearing this?
It's too much
This
power.
is so crazy.
And so I was like, I'll tell you what, if they say it one more time, I didn't know Pastor Benny in any way. I was like, Pastor Micah might think it's funny. But I was like, this is my last summer. If I get in trouble, I'm just gonna, that doesn't matter. So I put it up, or sure enough, they mentioned it again. And then I put it up, and the whole room started bursting out laughing.
I know how that sounded.
And what's funny is that I put it up, and then I just see Pastor Benny and Pastor Winnie, and they're all like, who the heck is up there?
Who is this genius back there who just made this?
So then the session ended, so I went back to where I was supposed to be in the other building.
Did you speed on the golf cart? You're like, I gotta get out of here before they catch me.
Well, I was kind of like, they didn't say anything. I was like, they didn't say anything, so I'll be okay. But as I was over there, Pastor Micah calls me, and he's like, hey, where are you at? And I was
that would
like,
be the scariest.
Yeah, I was like,
I would be so
I'm in the
scared.
series. He's like, Pastor Benny wants to meet you. And I was like, oh crap, okay. So I thought at worst he was gonna be like, hey, just don't do that again. You know, it was funny, but like, don't do that. So that's what I thought was gonna happen. Yeah. Then he goes, I meet him, and I go, or I meet him, and then he says, was it him? No, it was him. I meet him, and he says, did anyone ask you to make that? And I was like, no. I was like, how long did it take you to make that? I was like 5 minutes. I don't know. And then he goes, I need someone like that on my team.
No,
if you know Pastor Benny, I need someone like that on my team. What was funny is I saw him say that, and Pastor Benny was like, Okay. She didn't even know that he wanted to do that, and then it didn't end up happening. So he asked me to work there the following summer, and then something happened to where I just wasn't able to work out. And then Pastor Micah had moved over there like a year later, and it was like, hey, the job's still open they know you, they still remember you. So if you want the job, you can have it. So
Dude,
prayed about it. It was like,
crazy.
I'm serious.
felt called.
I've never heard this story before.
So I live in Vegas. I've been working there for 2 years
Because
because
of a
I made that
Photoshop
door
alert.
graphic, and then it's on the
While
screen.
he's speaking.
Yeah, while he's speaking.
If you have it, can we like put it up on the
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, we'll put it up.
That's so
Dude.
crazy, bro.
That was so bold of you too, man. That's crazy.
That's what's funny. I'm like never like
You're
that.
like such a chill guy. Like you're
Yeah, I'm like, that's not my. I don't know why. And what was funny is I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be at the other building doing the other session, but
It means you got to take risks.
Dude, I
bro.
feel like we can spend like a whole hour just talking about how like impactful that moment is, but also
yeah,
like even just as a sign to like other creative people, like, take those risks, you know, like put yourself out there.
I mean, the least that could have happened is I could have been fired.
Right. And it was your last summer anyway.
was your
It was
last
the last summer anyway. I think I don't remember what week that was, but
Dang.
yeah, it worked out. He loved it. Every once in a while, I'll look at the photos because it's really funny. I always tell because I work with some students right now. I always tell my students to just make whatever, have fun, have some fun.
All right. So what's the ugliest thing you've ever seen created?
Created.
No, I'm kidding. Don't answer that. No. Okay. Sorry. What was your question? That was such a bad question. Okay.
No, I was gonna say.
Sorry.
That's crazy. You are well. Actually, you could probably list out the things that you're like that you do creative wise. But I know you take pictures, and you obviously do graphic design.
Photography I haven't done in a minute. Actually, it's been a while. But photography, graphic design, and then videography, video editing. I guess social media, and then somewhat web design. Like I'll help design the page, but like the code and all that kind of stuff I can't do. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
You also do merch.
And merch, yes. Yeah, I did all of YFN's merch for 2 years with the help of Sam Juno. You guys know who that is. Yeah.
Which years did you do it?
I did Take Ground, which didn't happen because of COVID.
It did happen in a way.
In a way, yeah, it kind of happened. Take Ground, so I made the theme and all the merch for that, and then I made the theme for Behold, and did all the merch for Behold, and then I did Glorious also, actually, which I wasn't even.
Actually, I remember sitting in your office when you were like working on Glorious stuff too. I would just kind of come by like on random times.
Yeah. After I left YFN, I worked at CFNI for a year still, just not at YFN.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still helping out. I did all of Glorious' stuff also.
Behold is crazy. Like the
Behold was good.
the creative aspect of Behold is insane.
That was the one that they let me kind of not do whatever, but
Yeah.
they
More
trusted
freedom.
me the most. Yeah, they let me. I worked really well with. She was the operations director at the time. Her name was Holly, and she was the one that was like, "I trust you," you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would just bring ideas to her, and she'd be like, I'm not sure about that. But
So
sometimes it was.
as someone who's like got like the like barely any creative bones in his body, like hearing you guys talk about stuff, like even when we were setting up, you guys just speak each other's language, right? Like sit me in front of a textbook and talk to me about theology, but someone who's creative in the church space, who loves the Lord and wants to honor him and stuff like that. How would you say, like, what's one of the difficulties when it comes to engaging with other people who are in the church, just who don't understand your guys' language?
You're dumb. No, I'm just kidding.
You're dumb.
No,
Be
it's
smarter, okay? Be
no.
creative.
We'll cut that out. I don't know. People, everyone's creative. They're just, I don't know. Churches has made it to where like, oh, you're a creative. That means you can make graphics. You're probably a musician, and
You are a musician.
Yeah, I'm a musician too. You're either like one of those three things, and everyone's creative. It's just it looks different to everyone, and because like you can be creative. What biblical creativity is, what I defined is like the combination of two things brought together into one thing that no one has ever seen before. That doesn't mean it's a graphic. Like everyone thinks it's, oh, I made this really cool graphic. I'm really creative. You can be, but it's not just limited to design and videos. Like you have systems. You got I mean, you got architectures, you got even things with services with kids and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things to do with creativity. It's not just limited to those.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's real.
Yeah. Dude, I'm t- I'm tired of seeing like bad church graphics, bro.
Here's why they're bad. Someone's made one. They made them different, and everyone likes that, right? There's a different look and different style, and all they do is copy it, which is not what biblically God has allowed you to do. Like, you are your own person. God has given you the ability to create, and no one can think like you. And when you try and think like someone else, that's when you do a disservice to yourself
Dang.
of what you're making. So
Yeah.
that's why stuff looks bad, because everything looks the same.
For sure.
Yeah.
So would you say that when it comes to like, I guess, creating, even if it's not something that you can kind of attract the masses with, there's still more value in it being authentic and real than it being a copy of what somebody else has created that's palatable?
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't make something to gain like people to come to.
Right.
I guarantee you, any person that started creating, they just did it because one, that like that's what they feel called to do, and people are attracted to that,
Right.
and not necessarily attracted to, like what you just said. Where I totally lost my train of thought.
No, that's good. So, okay, I'm not sure if you wanted to go first.
No, like say like what's your take on okay, for example, I remember whenever Drake came up with that album, it was what was it? It had like all like the pregnant women emojis like on it.
I don't know. I think I can picture
it was like a bunch of
I remember
emojis
the
like
album
this.
cover?
Yeah,
Was it
was like
Certified Lover Boy? or
Certified.
whatever?
No,
that song
might
was
have
on
been.
there.
No,
I don't
actually, I
listen
think
to
it might have
Drake.
been.
I listen to Kendrick.
I don't know.
Come on.
I'm bringing it up
Life.
because I remember everybody after that came out. It was Certified Lover Boy.
Oh, dang it. I really wish I didn't know that.
Let me see
Freak.
the thing. Or
Gosh.
Show Jay. You don't have to put on the camera, but that.
Yeah, is that the one you're talking about?
yes,
That one.
yeah, now I remember.
Okay, so when that one came out, we put it on the screen. When that one came out, I remember churches started using that same type of layout, but with their own emojis or something like that. And
Yeah.
I started thinking, I think that's happened with a bunch of like secular artists, like album covers. And then I see a lot of churches and like trying to stay relevant, they'll use the same type of design. And I get it, but I'm like, I feel like we should be the ones doing
Pioneering.
Yeah, pioneering, you know? But like, what's your take on that? Like, how do you feel
before
like
you like share your exact take? Basically, I guess, why does church suck at creativity sometimes? You know, like why are we bad? Why is Christianity bad at creativity? At least in America.
Yeah, well, churches try to stay on trend rather than starting them, and starting them is a lot easier than I think people think. People think it's really hard because pop culture is the one that usually does it, and I think it's because they're the ones that just don't care. They're the ones that, like, I'm not going to care about anyone else's opinion. I like this, and I'm going to combine it with this, and it's going to make this cool vibe. And Christians don't do that. They kind of look at the secular word and be like, that looks really cool. People really like that, so I'm going to steal this. And that's why churches just aren't creative. And I think people do that with music, right? Christian music is not very
Good.
great.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Because it's years behind.
Uh-huh.
And same thing with a lot of the other media formats that is quote unquote faith based. It's kind of like,
We're talking like Pure Flix. Like, I'm sorry.
Name dropping.
Cut that out. Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. Okay. So how much do you think fear plays into like the church's hesitance, or even Christians as they like approach creativity? Like,
well, I bet you like any church that posts something and they get like little likes, you're like, all right, I'm not gonna do that again. They post what they like what people what people are engaged with on their social media. Unfortunately, that's the quote unquote trendy popular stuff. But I don't know. And my opinion, I'm like, if you were just you, like, obviously there's a book called Steal Like an Artist by
I've heard that book. Okay.
Austin Kleon, I believe is his name. And he basically talks about how everyone can steal. Like you take inspiration. What a lot of churches do is plagiarism. So they're stealing like an artist, which is getting inspiration, and it's like, all right, this is the best example that I can think of. For music example, how did hip hop start?
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah,
Well, like genuinely.
yeah.
So they took a record and they just like turned it on a turntable.
So yes, but it's a combination of multiple genres,
Right.
Into
So they stole like
into one.
artists.
So they stole parts of one, right? They didn't take. There's like R&B. There's technically like poetry and all that kind of stuff is in it, which is in every song. But they combine two things and to make it into one, and that's kind of how hip hop was born. And when you take two things that no one has ever seen before, and you kind of just make this new thing. I forgot what your question was.
No, you're answering the question like you really are. But it's like, I guess like the area that I think, like there's this hesitation, like even as someone who isn't considered like creative at
Yeah.
large, to
Oh, yeah,
put
sorry.
something out there.
So I think it's just, I mean, yeah, people get scared that they're gonna fail all the time, and I mean, life doesn't come without failure. If you don't fail, you don't learn. Like the great theologian Master Yoda says, failure is your best teacher. It's always you learn more from failure than anything else. And I guarantee you, any person that's really good at creative, all you see is their success. You don't see the thousands of times that they failed before that. You see their one success. So failure comes with everything that you do, unfortunately. But you're gonna learn the most. So if I were to inspire anyone, like it's okay to fail. If you're not failing, then you're probably not doing true creative work, is what I would say.
That's true.
I think that's especially noticeable in films, like Christian movies.
Christian movies.
Well, like for example, I made all the summer camp themes for YFN, and obviously all the ones that people saw were the ones that we posted.
You guys recorded other ones?
No, I made like that. Every mock-up I make for something, like when a client asks me for merch,
Yeah.
for example, I made someone a shirt the other day, or I made the church a shirt. We printed, what was it? It's because it says "Found God in Sin City," which is our major
I think I saw
sweatshirt
something
right,
like that,
that's
yeah.
at our church right now.
Yeah.
And that version that specific design went through like 4 or 5 versions, and the other 3 no one's ever gonna see. But they don't know that I failed at those, technically, quote unquote, failed at those designs. They see the final product. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. So, failure. When we're talking about failure, let's bring it to like, let's talk about like film and storytelling. Okay. So I think, okay, I'll say this. Sometimes I feel like I see a movie or some type of film or something that's Christian based, and it feels like this is the first draft of the script that they made.
well, here's the thing about Christian films. I think it's why it's not working is that they're failing and they're not learning anything. Unfortunately, because there's two problems, like, especially with faith based. Let's talk about films. All right.
Okay.
Faith based films. There's 2 problems. There's one, they are really corny, really cheesy. There's that direction where they're really corny, they're really cheesy, they're underfunded, and they're all about like a theme or like a moral. Then you have the other direction, which is like they're pretty big budget, they have great actors, great writers, sometimes good directors, but they're wildly biblically inaccurate. And there's not really a in between. And like I could name one good faith-based film that's all great acting, great writing. I don't know if it's won any Oscars or anything, but there's not a whole lot out there.
Okay. So what's your favorite faith-based movie?
It's a movie called Silence it's actually directed by Martin Scorsese.
No way.
But
he's not even.
he's not a Christian
He needs
director.
Jesus. No, okay. No,
He does. I mean, he doesn't.
We all need
Jesus,
Jesus. Okay.
It's about 2 missionaries that get a letter from their I can't remember like who exactly it is. Like
Are they the ones like in Japan, right?
yes, so they go to Japan and try and
I've
find
seen
their
some
old
crazy stuff about that one.
their old minister, and at that time Japan was like
Super
killing Christians and
yeah.
all this kind of stuff. So they basically go and encounter all these people that have wild faith and all this stuff, and it's all about the movie's called Silence. It's all about them asking for God, and all they hear is nothing.
Liam Neeson and Andrew Garfield, right?
Liam Neeson, Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver.
No way, he's in it
It's
too.
really good. It's like 3 hours.
I'm gonna
long,
watch it
but-
tonight. That's cool. I'm not gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah, it's really long. So it's 3 hours long, but that's probably the best one I've seen. Really well written, directed. The cinematography looks good. There's a lot of things that obviously go into what makes a good movie,
Yeah,
but that's probably the best one I've
So,
seen.
okay, so what makes it cringe? Like, what do you think?
makes it
The writing,
cringe, yeah.
the directing, the best. Though the thing that makes it the worst, which is the foundation of any film, is the script. So if you don't have a good script, you're not going to have good actors that want to be in your script. You're not going to have good writers that want to improve the script. You're not going to have a good director that wants to make the movie, and no one else is going to want to be involved. Which you're not. That means you're not going to have great production design, great cinematographer. They might go for a check, but if your script's not good, then no one's going to give you money
For sure.
to make the movie. So
Okay, so
that's why.
it's actually kind of ironic because, like, when I think about the Bible and how it's the best narrative that's ever been composed, obviously, like, divinely inspired and everything, it's so ironic that Christians are the ones who are making the worst movies.
Yeah.
We have, like, the Bible, like,
Well, yeah, I
it's
think
just so good, and we're just, like, making bad movies.
yeah, I noticed that, which is why I don't think they're learning from their mistakes. Is that they make a lot of movies about quote unquote morals, like the moral of the story is this, and when you make that, you kind of put the story second, and people don't come to see
like,
a
I
movie
see what you're
about.
saying. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
for example, the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Greatest book ever, is not a book about morals. It has morals in it. God made morals, but the book is about the story of God.
Yeah.
And
His interaction with
your
humanity. And
movie, your film, yes, it's sort of the Bible's about God and his interaction with his people. It's not about a book of morals.
Yeah.
So why are the movies about focused on the moral more than the story? For example, like I want to tell a story about redemption, right? And I'm gonna do a film about a drunk man who got saved and is now good. So let's say the guy was abusive to his kid, and the kid's grown up and now he's saved, right? So if I want to show how good God is and how much he saved, I have to see how bad he was. If I see how bad he was, I'm going to show like, oh, he was abusive. And when he's abusive, he's not going to, quote unquote, curse at the kid and be like, flip you, bro.
you freaking
You
dumb kid.
dumb kid.
I'm telling you, bro.
You have to, I mean,
You
might be
freaking
cussing, there might be language.
snot-nosed Son of a gun.
Like, show how real it was,
Yeah.
That's one of my hot takes. I was like, we need some rated R Christian
gosh.
movies, bro.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. And I mean, language, there's technically is, like, language in the Bible is obviously a little bit different from,
They say whore of Babylon.
they do.
Sorry.
they say it's different in the Bible. Nudity, you don't ever really need nudity, and there's like
Sorry,
one
can you say
story
that again?
you don't ever need nudity. It's not
Right
important to
into
the
that one
story.
right there.
Yeah.
You don't need nudity. The problem with, there's like one story I can think of. It's not necessarily like justifying nudity, but it's like if you're gonna make a movie about David, right? You would tell his failure with Bathsheba, but you can quote unquote allude to it without having to defile the actress and then cause the audience to stumble.
sure.
You don't need that.
Yeah.
Violence, people will complain about violence and then they'll go read the Bible and be like, David cut off his head, like,
Yeah.
and then they'll watch it. I know it's different reading
Is
it
that
and
a real
watching it, but-
complaint? Like
oh yeah,
Christian audiences, they don't like
bloody.
violence?
yeah.
Oh.
That's insane,
Yeah.
bro.
Okay.
I don't
I
think
mean, there's such a thing as like overdoing it, like
don't
a
think you-
Quentin Tarantino
yeah.
movie, but
I don't
but
think you gotta be like gory or anything.
no,
Like, there's
the only
plenty of
one that I'm
movies with
like,
violence.
this needs to be gory would be like the crucifixion. If you're gonna
They
make a
did
movie
that.
about
Passion of the Christ.
they did, which it's also still not close.
No, it's
to-
worse in real life.
to
Like if you
what
thought
it
that
should
was
be.
bad.
Yeah,
I mean, the demon baby was kind of bad. in
The
Passion.
demon baby. Yeah, the passion. We could talk about the
I'm an
passion.
adult now with my own son, and that still traumatizes me.
I gotta look away with that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a
dude,
little-
same.
Well, you know what that means, right?
What?
So the demon baby was basically like the devil showing, quote unquote, Jesus and God that he takes care of his son. That's what that whole scene means.
No way.
Yes. So
Wait, for real?
yeah, as he's like, this is I take care of my son. You're not taking care of yours. As Jesus is
my
taken.
gosh.
That's why Mel Gibson.
What the flip? How did I not know that?
Yeah. Quote unquote, like the Antichrist. I guess it could be like the Antichrist is what he's carrying or something like that.
Oh my god!
But it's to show Jesus, and if you look at it, you see him like
he's
moving
literally
through the
he's
crowd.
like laughing at Jesus. Look
I
at
Yeah.
remember it now. That makes so much
What?
sense.
Yeah.
this just bumped that movie up like crazy for
So
me.
yeah,
Oh my god!
Passion of the Christ is one of those ones where it's definitely the better Christian movies, but it's technically not all biblically accurate because of, like, obviously Mel Gibson, who directed the movie, took some liberties in showing certain things, certain messages like that, but it's technically not in the Bible. Like, it doesn't say
Right.
the devil was present.
So do you think that's like? So how do you feel about creative liberty when it comes to Christian storytelling? So like The Chosen, for example, instead of focusing on one book of the
Yeah.
Bible, they kind of
I think as long as it's not like blasphemous, like there's a movie called The Last Temptation of Christ,
oh gosh,
directed by again Martin Scorsese, which is actually based off of a book,
uh-huh.
and it talks about how Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Like, that's straight up blasphemous. But what The Chosen does, and I have certain issues with The Chosen, but it's not because of the added. Oh my gosh, excuse me. I had a burp. Excuse me. I have a couple of problems with The Chosen, but it's not because of the added conversations. It's more because of the authenticity sometimes to me. Like, Jesus' teeth are perfectly white and clean. And for me, I'm like, that's not how they were, And it doesn't take away from,
Wait,
like,
you don't think Jesus' teeth were clean?
yeah, because he had
I
he
see
had
what
dentist
you-
procedures every week.
He
But
had
their
Colgate,
clothes,
like, in advance.
their clothes are pristine, And it's just like, if I was a director, I would personally choose them, like, give them, like, make it real as possible. Like, but that would just be me. And it's not no reason to not watch the show. And people will say it's not biblical because they added those scenes, and obviously they technically didn't happen. But there's a scripture in the Bible, I forget which one. There's a lot of things in this book that
John,
yeah,
at the end, he's like writing, he's saying,
Yes.
we tried to fit every single thing that
Yeah, it
God
was just
did.
too much.
Now that doesn't mean you can go in and add anything you want, but yeah.
that's valid.
I think
okay.
as long as it doesn't change the narrative of or like twist a view of Christ or whatever, But
And there's
I-
some
I
things
really
that you
love The
can
Chosen.
like look at the context and be like, that may not be right. I think there was someone that made an argument about how there's a whole thing about Peter losing the boat, losing the business in The Chosen, I believe. But I mean, there's no evidence to support that.
I mean, he had to be wealthy somehow.
He had to be wealthy because he had multiple boats fishing. So that was a thing that I think they added so they can have the whole forgiveness
so
narrative.
like
But-
even the like Peter on the water like talking to Jesus scene, which obviously isn't what scripture details.
yeah, I haven't seen all of it, so I may not know.
I just spoiled it for you. Forget it. So I just forget I mentioned it.
You read the
Never
book,
mind.
bro.
Just yeah. Read
What's
your
the
Bible,
scene?
dude.
I'm talking about The Chosen
No,
specifically.
kidding.
But yeah.
They do a great job though. I really love how they do their storytelling because they like The Chosen, they really invest you in and fill in those spots, and it's nothing like blasphemous or anything, but they fill in those spots so that when you get to like the main points that scripture emphasizes, you went on that journey with them.
Well, think about it from a filmmaker's perspective. When there's a certain way to make stories and movies. If you were gonna make it exactly like the text says it would be Jesus talking in different places. He would cast out a demon, and then it would cut, and then it would go to a different spot.
And then immediately,
And immediately goes to a different spot.
For sure.
And then it'll be on the screen. And then he went to, and then you go back and so it would definitely be, if you want, I mean, you could do it and it'd be kind of cool, but from a story, when you're making the film, it's a little hard to just write it like that.
But
you want to create.
it's really cool that you brought that up too, because like even when it comes to the writing of passages in scripture, we see that the New Testament authors intentionally rearrange certain story elements so that they can point to something, right?
Yeah.
So like the way that John structures the miracles of Jesus and even the life and events of Jesus differently from other gospels is because John is trying to emphasize his 7 miracles, his 7 I am statements, and then another 7. But the point is, he's trying to communicate a message that goes beyond just what we see in the letter.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like if the Bible takes those creative liberties, it kind of encourages believers to kind of take creative liberties as well.
You know, but it's all these little things pointing to it. And like what Jay's saying is like, I think the movie industry, like the Christian movie industry, tries way too hard to like put it in your face. Like, this is what this story is about.
God's
Yeah.
not
without
dead.
letting
Well,
the story
okay,
tell
sorry.
itself.
Let's
you
look
know?
at so there's 2 movies about the exact same story. There's Son of God, made by, I'm not even sure what the director is, and then there's Passion of the Christ, which is made by Mel Gibson. I think they're about 10 years apart. One's 2004, which is Passion of the Christ, and then 2014. Yeah. So Passion of the Christ starts. It's a like quote unquote non-linear movie. So it is, but it's not. They like go flashbacks and stuff. But they start at the garden, all the way up until he walks out the tomb. Yeah. And then they go back and show. I forgot what they show. They show Sermon on the Mount a little bit. They show him washing the feet and stuff. But then you have Son of God. I haven't seen that movie in a long time because I don't want to rewatch it because it's not, unfortunately, not as good.
Wait,
and
I
I feel
remember
bad.
it being decent. Like I remember that, but then I looked it up and I was like,
I did
it's got-
too,
yeah.
and I looked up. I watched part of it, and it was like it just wasn't that great. Now, some people say, "Oh, they were under budget." So, Son of God had a budget of $22 million. So, and then Passion of the Christ had $30 million. So, for that case, let's add the $8 million to the box office gross. Actually, let me look this up because I want to get the number right.
Man, while
Son
you look
of
that
God.
up, yeah, like my church actually went to watch Son of God in the theaters. Like they scheduled a day at the theaters and they were like, let's go watch this movie about Jesus. And I remember people were like crying and everything like that. And I was eating popcorn and not really paying attention. I was talking to my friends, but I still remember like seeing Jesus and be like, oh, he's smiling. And he's not 100% white. Like he's a little.
Well, yeah,
I've got a
and then
little color
there's
to him.
this is the problem with the Son of God. One, obviously, whoever was attached to the movie, they're not really well known. And sometimes there's a reason why people aren't well known is because they're not as good of actors.
Okay.
Like, obviously, everyone starts off that way.
Yeah.
But not everyone ends that way because, some people are just, unfortunately, more talented than others at that specific art form of acting and writing and directing.
Yeah.
Let me look at this real quick. Passion of the Christ. Okay, so Passion of the Christ. Yeah, that's what I thought. Son of God, $22 million, grossed $70 million.
Okay.
So let's add $8 million to that, for what would be $78 million. So $22 million budget made $70 million. Passion of the Christ, $30 million, made $612 million. And it was the highest grossing rated R movie for almost 10 years.
Until Deadpool.
Yeah.
Until Deadpool, I think. And then actually that was Deadpool. So if you add the 8 million, it doesn't even break 100 million. And the reason why? Because the other one was a better movie. Yeah. And the way he told the story, one, right? He told it differently. Yeah. Two, the acting was better. The writing was better. Now there's problems with both of them, right? Son of God, he's a white guy, blonde hair.
He's got a little bit of color.
He's got a little bit of tan, like dirty blonde hair, blue eyes, and he's got a British accent. Like,
Yeah.
and then no offense to, I know I'm sorry, but all the people that worked on the movie, I'm sure they worked as hard as they could. But like even the costumes, you can tell it if you watch movies. If you watch both movies side by side, you can tell that it looks like a massively under budget movie, but sometimes filmmaking isn't just about finding the right people to work with. That's a lot. That's like half of it. Yeah. And then Passion of the Christ, 600 and I forgot what the money I said, 600 something million.
A lot of millions.
Now Jesus is technically still played by a white actor, but when Mel Gibson's like, we're gonna go in the original language, Hebrew, Latin.
Which was
I really
Man,
appreciated
which was-
that. Yeah.
that was crazy.
I'm usually not a subtitle person, but you don't really care.
Yeah.
And he purposely made the movie to where you could kind of tell what they're saying.
Yeah.
Even if you had it on mute.
Uh-huh.
Like you can the movie. There's actually not a whole lot of dialogue in the movie. Actually, I don't think the most is between Pilate and what's his name, the high priest. But the two directions, the two styles that people decided to go with, right? And one of them is just turned out to be a massively better movie.
Yeah.
And like we talked about, Mel Gibson added some stuff in there technically, but
I feel like it's because like he wasn't so held back by like I guess the Christian community, or he's like kind of scared to offend anybody, you know? Like I know he's a believer himself, but
he wanted to I know he wanted to be really careful in how he told it, because you could definitely tell it wrong. And I think right now he's working on the resurrection, and he's taken
He's doing part 2.
Yeah.
he's
Let's
taken
go.
10 years to write it, and it's gonna be it'll be controversial, I bet you.
That's really cool.
But I mean, a lot of this is why you need a good director, because you can have quote unquote okay actors, and you can make them way better actors with a director. And like if you watch the scenes side, like one after another of Jesus on the cross, you can see the difference totally. Like, I mean, I feel bad dogging on the actor.
No, but
he's like,
it's like valid.
yeah, he's like, Father, forgive them, you know.
Oh wow.
And when you
Oh wow.
and not just that, so not just the acting, right? There's the production and the makeup and stuff. His hair is like perfectly dry. He's pretty bloody, but his teeth are white still. And wherever they decided to film, they're like super close in his face.
Yeah.
And then as opposed to Passion of the Christ, that scene, obviously the makeup's just really good. He's super bloody.
Wait, you're telling me they didn't actually just beat him up?
His teeth are really bloody, as one would be if you were lashed out in the face and all over. I know they gave him brown contacts because he has blue eyes, actually. But his hair is wet.
That's still a level of
So
commitment.
so think about it. If you're being crucified and you've been lashed, you're still bleeding. Those wounds are open, and how they describe it is like he was unrecognizable. You couldn't tell if he was a man or a woman. What was crazy is that if you were to make that movie, it would probably, like if you were to make a legit crucified movie, the movie would be NC-17, which was what people don't even know that's a rating. And the only problem that is if you make it NC-17, no one's gonna go watch it. So you'd have to pull it back a little bit. And if you were to make it like that, it says, some say that you couldn't tell if he was a man or a woman, which means that when he was lashed, that the parts of his face, probably like his beard, wasn't there. And obviously the main reason why you can tell if it's a man or a woman is, and he was butt naked, which means those parts were also probably off, like lashed off. So if anyone watches that real movie, they're gonna throw up and walk it. Now I bet you they'll appreciate it way more. They'll appreciate what Jesus did for you. And you can see, like in Passion of the Christ too, there's this massive difference, and I still don't think it's 100% is like the, what's it called? Not the physical torment, but the emotional torment that he went through. Like it's when you cuss at Jesus and when you spit at him, and when you show that in Passion of the Christ and Son of God, they're vastly different.
Right.
And where Mel Gibson decides to put certain lines, I like, for example, when Jesus says, "Lord, forgive them, if they know not what they do," he says it a few times. And then I can't even remember in the Son of God, he says it when he's on the cross, which is when he says it in the Bible. But
Dang.
So like let's talk on okay, obviously like Passion was super violent, and Mel went really into the detail as far as how dark that was. So let's bring it out of like the actual canonical biblical narrative and into movies where there is violence. You were talking about how like a story of a abusive father, right? I think there's some movies that I can recall where they show like an abusive father or something, but it's like everything's like kind of PG almost. If anything, like a
There's
little
one
PG-13.
I feel bad for mentioning it, but it's kind of true. Is a movie called I Can Only Imagine,
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking of.
and it's about his dad was not necessarily a great person, and I think the movie's PG.
Yeah.
And when you're if you have anyone who's been around alcohol and drunkenness, they're not obviously in their state of mind.
Yeah.
And their
yeah,
when abuse is soft, it's not abuse. When abuse is like
yeah,
lighthearted, stuff like that, some people can still relate to it, but when it's real is when people relate to it more.
Right.
yeah. Which is why I think if you go that extra mile to really show it, it doesn't cheapen whenever the redemption of the story does come. You know, when Jesus does enter
And
the
if
story.
you focus on, oh, it was so bloody, oh, it was so, he said this, and when you focus on that more than you focused on the redemption and how good he is now, then you've missed the point of the story.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, so, and to that movie's credit, I mean, the plate scene, it did actually surprise me. I was like, oh, wait, they actually did that in the movie.
Well, there's good moments in it for sure, and it's great that that's, I forget what's his name, Bart.
So I think Bart.
Don't
That's
ask
his
me.
name.
From Mercy. Yeah, he's the,
Mercy
I
Me?
can only imagine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think it's his name. It's great that he, believes in God and found God and all that.
And even his
and
dad,
after all
you
that
know?
stuff and his dad. But I bet you when also like a big problem is Christians will make movies for Christians and they think
okay,
about
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because like,
this is when some people this is my belief, some people are definitely called to do that.
Yeah,
I don't
for
think
sure.
everyone is though. For example, I think if I actually just watched this interview of him, Alex Kendrick is his name. He's the one that
the
made
Kendrick brothers.
Yeah, he's the one that made
Facing the Giants,
Facing the Giants
Courageous,
Ford.
and those. Yeah.
Those were pretty decent movies, and every church will talk about how you should go watch them and stuff.
Yeah.
But he literally talks about how in the interview he does try to do it for both audiences, but he wants to make movies for churches and church believers. Like that's just
Valid.
Yeah.
That's real.
Now, if I were to make movies, I don't want to do that. Like that's my goal would be to show how real it is, how real life things don't always look what they do in the movies, and when you show it a certain way, I think it'll have a different impact. But a lot of people will say, "Don't make stuff of the world" and stuff. Like they'll use that. They'll probably a lot of Christians will criticize, "If you do that, you'll be of the world" and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, yeah, you don't have to be of the world, but you still have to go into the world.
Yeah.
Like the Lord says, go into the world and make
For sure.
disciples of all nations. So when you do an authentic movie like that,
Uh-huh.
I guarantee you, there's a reason why Christian movies don't get nominated for stuff.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
It's real.
Because
And they're not doing it. Obviously, no one's going to do it for the nominations if you really believe. But
But like
Again, when you go
think
back-
about the God that we have, right? Who has created us to be creative, and how our creativity can actually bring glory and honor to Him, but we fall short as the body of Christ. Like it is kind of sad that these movies aren't in conversations for awards. That there is no spotlight being shined, whatever the word is, on Christian creative works.
yeah.
And it I think it goes back to what you mentioned earlier, is that a lot of Christians create for other Christians instead of creating for the Lord and letting that be like its own testimony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's getting better. There's a couple more movies out there that are trying to do both. I haven't watched any of them yet, but
Okay.
everyone keeps telling me to watch it. Like, oh, it's a little bit different.
There's this movie that
The
came out.
Shift.
Oh,
I saw some clips of it.
Yeah,
It's,
and you could tell with the ideas of these stories. Like that one's about, I forget what it's like, a sci-fi
a sci-fi
Something where,
Christian
like,
movie?
He
Christian
has, like,
movies and the devil's
the devil,
a
yeah.
person and stuff. There's another one.
Left
I
Behind.
can't remember that. Not that one. There's another one. I can't pronounce the name of it. I don't remember, but it's about this guy who interviews a guy who's possessed by a demon.
I know what you're talking about.
And the idea of that, like,
He's like a
years ago,
murderer,
would have been
and he
like,
was
we're not watching this movie, it's demonic, So that, I think the ideas are getting there. I think it's still not there yet though. But
yeah,
I think it's just gonna take someone that
for sure.
was like, I don't care about your opinions, and we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
So so I call it the contemporary Christian machine, which is like this machine that pops out music and media and TV and whatever, right?
Yeah.
For Christians to consume.
Yeah.
And they rake in all this money. Like this happens in music and it happens in movies, but there are literally people who are rich off of marketing to Christians and making really mediocre projects day in and day out, right? And so I feel like the risk that's necessary is saying, I don't actually care about how much money this makes. I'm going to make a work that glorifies God, like first, and then we can worry about all the other stuff, which is obviously harder to find funding for. But I love what's up?
There's also the funding problem, right?
Okay.
People are like, they're not funded enough. They're not funded enough. But that's also like, in part, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a movie there's a movie called. Actually, I'm gonna give you this stat real quick. Okay.
All right.
So, and there's no shot at the movie, right? There's a movie called The Forge that just came out that was directed by the Kendrick brothers. Movie was $5 million. Took $5 million to make, which isn't much for a movie. A movie's average is about anywhere from probably 80 million to 200 million. 200 million is your big budget Marvel movies. And then 5 million, and it grossed 40 million. Now there's this other movie, little movie called Get Out.
Okay. Small little project.
Small little
Nobody's ever heard of
project.
it.
Now, it's not a movie I can honestly recommend, but 4.5 million
No way.
Wow.
made $255 million.
Dude.
Meaning, and the actors that they got,
He wasn't
was
really
nominated
well
for
known.
a best actor. He was also the writer was not nominated for best screenplay, best original screenplay, and then they were nominated for a bunch of other stuff. So that tells me it was the director who had a vision and executed it. He may not have executed to what it fully wanted it to be, but it was good enough to where he used his budget properly,
Wow.
and people watched the movie. It's like
That
it was
is
a story.
crazy to think about.
He believed in his story, and the story worked, and he directed it well enough to where the actors were good, to where the writing seemed authentic, and the dialogue and all that kind of stuff. So budget can't, I do think it's underfunded for sure, but it's not always the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe the reason that God's Not Dead 5 is being made is because they do have the funding and they do have enough money.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think anybody's getting saved watching God's Not Dead 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But hey, yeah, this set of movies is gonna be the one that turns people to Christ.
Again, I think it's just the story. When you don't have a good story and all you're trying to tell is morals, then it's not gonna do as well. People didn't watch Get Out because it's about
Black
the moral
people.
of the story is about
Right? I can say that I'm black.
about racism, right? The moral wasn't the story. The moral of the story wasn't about racism, right?
Right, yeah.
No, it talked about it, and it's a very real thing for sure. But the story, was about
It was
the
a
guy
good story.
It was a great story.
Yeah.
I think when it comes down to it, audiences in a movie do not want to be preached at. They want to get the storytelling things on their own, but they don't want the movie to just be a visual
over the head.
sermon,
Yeah.
this is the way of God, and follow,
Oh yeah, and I think you notice in the writing too, things that are obvious. When you're writing, they teach you when you're writing a script, they teach you don't give too much description. You're supposed to let people just think the audience is dumb, right? They write too much into it as opposed to just letting the audience figure it out.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's a big thing that, again, it goes down to the script, the quality of the script. So it's just can we do better?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if you want to talk about this on camera. You show me a little bit of a script you're writing for, it's like a dark, what's the word? Direction. For,
Yes, I would like to make movies, obviously. Will it happen? I hope so. Don't know. But I started writing a script at the beginning of last year. Our pastor was like, try and find your passion. And so he was saying, find your passion and then do whatever you can to, grow in it. Yeah. And I'm like, I love movies. How the heck am I supposed to start with that. And I was like, well, I can at least learn how to write. So I started writing, looked it up on YouTube. I had taken a class at college, forgot everything, so I had to look it up on YouTube, and I started writing it. I started with something that I really loved, which was not just the Bible, Star Wars.
Right on.
Came up with a whole trilogy.
There's like Bible and then Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then
Came with the
everything
whole
else.
trilogy. Now I will say it's pretty cool.
I've actually read a lot of it. It's really
Yeah,
good.
I've told you a little bit about it. That's right. And then I started writing that one, and I had gotten pretty far into the Star Wars one, and I was like, you know what? I've seen this image, the specific image in my head. I'm like, let me write this, and so it became 10 pages, and it became 20. I'm like 102 pages right now, and which equivalents to about an hour and what is it? 102 minutes. It was about a minute a page.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what it equates to. And yes, when you're making a movie, there's like what you call a lookbook and a tone. And my tone that I would go for, have you ever seen that Northman?
I haven't,
call it
but I've seen
Northman.
photos of it.
A lot darker, very brutal. The Green Knight, you ever heard of the Green Knight?
I have.
So
That movie's
it's a
weird.
little bit like the Northman, and I don't recommend that movie. It's not a great movie. I watched it and not knowing how dark it was going to be. It was pretty dark and a little demonic, so I don't recommend watching that. But it's very much about, what's it called? I guess supernatural and natural. And it's exactly what Jesus, well, a lot of people that, here's the thing about Jesus, right? And this hasn't ever been portrayed, not to my knowledge. Jesus was fully man and fully God.
Uh-huh.
And not just that, but Jesus was king, not just of man,
Uh-huh.
but of everything.
Yeah.
And so how do you show the other realm,
Dude.
you know?
This
And I think
yeah.
the second Passion of Christ is going to go into this
Uh-huh.
a lot more. But like, how do you show that? And what's hard is you guys talked about hell. Was that 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys are talking about just how do you portray that to an audience that just might not understand. Like, that's when you have to put it. So, for example, when you die, you're not gonna have a body.
Yeah.
How do you portray something without a body?
Right.
Hell is what?
A spiritual place.
Spiritual place. Hell is, you guys are talking about hell may look different for everyone. How do you portray that?
Right.
And not just that, but like, there are some things that the Bible does give us. For example, heaven gives us some descriptions of what heaven looks like.
Yeah.
We have never seen anything like that.
No.
But then you have to think about, all right, how do you portray that and that's not cheesy?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they make movies like Marvel movies, Star Wars movies. There's great sci-fi movies that aren't, quote, unquote, that category. For example, what's a non? You got like horror type, alien, like movies that are like not in that tone of Star Wars and Marvel. So what would it be like to show God is fully man? You show him hungry, you show him tired, show him sweaty. And then how do you show God king? How do you show God the demons afraid of, like, deathly afraid of Jesus, which they were. That's a big problem with Hollywood too.
Right.
Yeah.
Is they, obviously people will say Hollywood's demonic, and there's a lot of, not great things about Hollywood. And Hollywood has given this bad portrayal of Satan and demons.
Yeah.
The one that always bothered me is the upside down cross. Always bothers me. The devil ain't worthy of anything to do with the cross. When a cross goes upside down, you're like, oh, Peter's here. It's Peter. Hi, Peter.
Dang.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The devil didn't sacrifice his life. He didn't die. He didn't do nothing. So he is not worthy of the cross in any
Dude,
way.
for real.
Not just that. There's a commercial that I watched. I was watching another movie. It's called the Pope's Exorcist or The Exorcist or something like that.
Yeah.
I think I saw.
And there's a clip in the trailer. He like pushes the priest against the wall, or the priest says something about God won't let you do something, and then he like pushes him against the wall, and the demon's like, "Oh, God didn't let you do this, or did God allow that?" Something like that. And what's funny is that in the Bible, and I'm sure you guys have seen this in real life, demons have no other option but to bow. And the story of the demons going in the pig, they were scared.
Yeah.
They know who he was. They knew who he is.
Yeah.
And they flee and they ask to go in a pig, and then they go and kill themselves, throw themselves off the cliff. So Hollywood has this portrayal that Satan and God are equals, when Satan can't really even defeat the archangel Michael.
Dude, right?
Yeah.
So how do you portray that?
Right.
And the script, or the part of the script that I shown you, was exactly that. Was Jesus, or which was Satan just encountering Jesus after he dies, and he just like
Dude.
gets horrified.
It gets
That sounds so cool.
There's this movie called Batman Forever, and in the scene, I remember being little.
That's the George Clooney one, right?
No, it's the Val Kilmer one.
Oh, Val Kilmer, my bad. Yeah.
And he defeats the Riddler, and the Riddler looks at him and he sees his bat, and he starts like screaming.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, Jim Carrey starts like screaming bloody murder. It's like kind of a comical scream, but you could tell he looks horrified.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I pictured one day, was just the devil being that scared, seeing Jesus.
That's so cool.
And not just that, but like when you put it to a tone of brutality as it was, like we talked a little bit about the crucifixion. I would have to, the reason why I would, if I really could, I would make that crucifixion as brutal as it was. Yeah. But the truth is, I want to make more movies, and if I make more movies, I have to, kind of have to make money off the movie. Not for it to be, not for me to get money, but for me to be entrusted to make more movies. Mm-hmm. But it would be pretty brutal. Not just that, but like the whole opening scene I've written is pretty brutal.
Yeah. No, dude. Yeah. When I read that script, and then I read it with the inspirational like track you had on there, and I'm not gonna say from which movie it was, but I was like imagining it so much in my head, and there was a part. I don't know if I can say something.
So basically
it's kind of like the climax of that part that just like blew me away.
Yeah, I was like, the part is basically, oh my gosh, I'm really bad with naming the number of the place of the script, but it talks about you have the power to step on serpents and scorpions and stuff. But I basically took that
Mark
reference,
chapter 16,
and is Jesus going into hell after he dies. Mm-hmm. And it basically just steps on the neck of Satan.
Dude.
And it says in 1 Peter, something about, Peter talks about how Jesus went down and basically ministered to the demons. What does ministering mean? What does ministering mean? Yeah. What is I'm asking you.
He was ministering. Two versions. It says either sharing the gospel with them or actually like helping them, like physically helping them.
Not the demons though.
No.
So when you minister, right. Basically telling people who God is. So Jesus was down there telling the demons who he was. So he basically steps on his neck, and how I have it written was stepping on his neck, and he says, "I am that I am."
Wow.
So that's what Jesus and the Father are one.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically that was the whole climax, and then get into the really complicated stuff of Hades and Abraham's bosom and the people that were down there being tortured. That's the hard part about portraying that, because it's very hard to understand. But
I think more movies should do things like that, though, showing the spiritual realm, because there's so many spiritual movies that are in the secular realm, and like you were saying, they give so much credit to the devil and his angels, and like they're like super powerful, and they have to get like 3 priests in, and they have to go over and over.
They kind of treat God as like absent. Like,
it's like all the power is in the cross that the priests will hold, but obviously there's no one really in Hollywood that's accurately giving a good portrayal of the power of the Holy Spirit.
There's even in the big budget biblical movies that there are, like Noah and Exodus, Gods and Kings. So Noah is directed by a man named Darren Aronofsky. Aronofsky. There we go. Yeah. Which he made a couple crazy movies, and he has a very dark cinematography, or filmography. Sorry.
I didn't like that movie. I didn't like that.
So that one's wildly biblically inaccurate. Because it's actually based off of the Book of Enoch more so, which is, I'm not sure if you guys we've talked about this yet.
We haven't talked about it yet.
Book of Enoch is a very interesting book
It's like
that is not
interesting.
of the Bible.
Yeah.
It is
It's
interesting.
intertestamental, so like it's not like it's stuff that they would have been reading, like it's actual literature that they would have been reading.
Yes.
but it's not something they would have looked at as authoritative.
Yeah,
So,
it seems like it was almost like I guess entertainment because it was
Almost.
written after like Malachi
For sure.
So within those
Yeah.
400 years of silence, they were
Absolutely.
still writing.
It's also
things.
pseudepigrapha, so like it's titled the
Yeah.
Book of Enoch, but we know Enoch didn't write it. So like
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's based off of that, which obviously has, and it's still different than that. It's still, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the book is based off of like a graphic novel or like a book that's based off of. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure because I watched the video. But it's based off of that, and it talks like the inaccuracies that it has in it was one, the angels coming down and being these weird rock people that help mankind, and God banished them, and then if they helped out the humans, they can go back up.
Yeah, that was weird. The redemption of angels is like not just, it's nowhere in scripture.
And then it
So,
talked
yeah.
about how, or it showed another man was able to get on the ark. This weird relationship between one of the sons. I forgot. I think it's Ham. Is trying to find a wife and ends up finding someone, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So it's pretty biblically accurate. And then you have movies like Exodus, Gods and Kings, which is
Had some moments,
it had some moments,
but it like tried to give a naturalistic explanation for some of the
Yeah.
miracles.
yes. So well, not just that, but he's directed by Ridley Scott, who's made some amazing movies: Gladiator, Alien, Blade Runner. But like Christian Bale who's a big name, plays Moses as
His
a
interactions
Hebrew.
with God were also awful.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know.
well, the ethnicity first. He's a white man playing a Hebrew,
Yeah.
and not just that. You have a white man who's playing an Egyptian, which is Ramses.
Yeah.
And honestly, they both have pretty decent performances. They do pretty good, and they use the source material, but they use it pretty loosely. But yeah, for example, the wild inaccuracy is that God appears in a bush, and then after that, he appears as a child. And so Moses is talking to a child, and he goes back to the child like a lot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I don't understand the reason for that. Like,
vision.
I don't
I don't
know.
see the
For
vision
example,
of it.
like the Passion of the Christ one. You're like, why is the devil with this kid? And then I just told you guys. I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes more sense. Now, it's technically not accurate, but this is like, what was the reason
Yeah.
for this child being God? Like, I don't get it. So, but it had the Red Sea looks phenomenal. You know,
Yeah.
like it has great moments, but it's mostly because of the name is why people join that movie.
Didn't
Right.
they have like water tornadoes in there? Or was it like fire
think they did
tornadoes?
have
They had-
like
yeah,
while
that's
the chariots were going?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, but they included Midnight by Coldplay, so that was a banger. That made it decent. I guess. No.
Yeah, that's the other side. That's like, so you have the first half we were talking about, like the cringy, not well made movies, and then you have that side where it's like things are just portrayed
High
super
budget.
wrong
Yeah.
and highly unbiblically
Even
inaccurate.
that like new Mary movie that came out on Netflix.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's awful. Like I'll
It's
just
a
say that,
musical,
like,
right?
No, it's not. It's not a musical.
Oh,
They
okay.
have one that is a musical. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Oh.
But most recently, this movie like about Mary, and basically she's the main character, and also she's the one who's like immaculately conceived, and like it's this crazy stuff where she basically becomes like the second coming, like the more important character than Jesus, right? And it's not even based entirely on scripture, but it uses scriptural themes.
Yeah.
And they use other book, like I think it's the pseudo Gospel of James or something like that. But the point being that they'll use famous biblical stories or narratives,
Yeah.
and they'll totally abuse them. On
In
one
which
end.
you can use, like, there's great examples of people using biblical narratives, and they make great movies, and you can see the theme, like the Lord of the Rings.
Right?
Chronicles
Or
of
Chronicles of
Narnia.
Narnia. Okay.
Those are, they have you. I mean, the Chronicles of Narnia is the one that's the most evident. Like
Yeah.
you can clearly see the biblical themes in it.
Aslan, Jesus.
yeah. And they make it pretty well. And they're movies that are right. They're not necessarily, they have the morals in them, but they're the story of the fantasy story of four chosen kids taking down the White Witch and all that stuff is really great. And there's a reason why they're beloved stories. But I mean,
Yeah, I hear you,
Yeah.
it's just.
dude. 100%.
I would love to, like, that's a hard thing. I don't know if, I don't know if it's just me or if anyone else has had that thought, but it's just like, love to make a biblically inaccurate, a biblically accurate movie that is just shows the brute realism of especially that story. Like that's right now, it's the event that I would love to tell. Like the way I start the script is Herod killing all the babies,
Yeah.
which is
Gut
rough.
wrenching.
That'd be insane.
People, yeah, it reads. I forgot the scripture. It even goes back into Jeremiah about
Yeah,
the
it
weeping
points back
of
to it.
the weeping
In
of
Ramah.
in Ramah.
Yeah.
And when you read it, you're just like, oh man, he killed all the babies. You think about it, like soldiers
killed
going into a town,
babies, bro.
murdering babies. Like
Yeah.
that's
Like
horrible.
dragging him out. Bro.
Yeah,
That's insane.
and that would like, of course, that sets the tone for the rest. Your first 10 minutes is what sets the
Wow.
attention span for the rest of the audience. For the
So
rest
when
of the
you
movie.
inevitably film this, there's a fun like historical thing going on there, and it's that the town of Bethlehem probably only had between like 20 to 30 babies. That doesn't minimize how tragic it was, but some people will be like, oh, but we don't have a record in history about them
Yeah.
killing babies. It's
Yes,
because it was
that
like
is-
25 babies.
I've
for
heard that
one,
argument, yeah.
right? But like, this is a fun
Yeah, I've heard there's no
because
evidence.
we
of that ever.
believe this film is going to be filmed. So we're just like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, when someone loses their baby, that's
No,
no
and,
no
like,
parent wants to go through that
for sure,
and for
especially
it to,
as a dad. Like,
for someone to be you just became a dad recently. I can't even imagine like also it was I forget the age
under two, like
under
two and
two, showing like, oh, these are girls, leave them alone.
under.
Oh, I found these boys, you know.
Wow.
Kind of that, and you make it just. Unfortunately, you have to make it brutal
Yeah.
to show
Yeah.
that. Like I would love to show, and the reason why I pointed back to the movie called The Northman, which is, again, I don't recommend the movie, but you can, if you just watch the trailer, or if you watch the teaser trailer, you can tell the brutality. And to do the crucifixion, one thing that I would love to do is show a little bit more of what Jesus went through mentally.
Yeah.
Insults today weren't the same, so you might have to. It will be hard to translate that over,
For sure.
but like how Jesus was mocked, how he carried the sins, to figure out how to portray it and how to show it.
Yeah, even
But
that
when
TikTok you
have-
sent me a while ago about him being separated from the father for that moment, like where it like for his entire existence he's been connected to the father, right? And then in that moment, it's like because of the sin that he took, our sin that he took on, there's like that space.
Yeah.
If you watch that scene too, if you watch the difference between Son of God and then this is when the directing and the acting comes in, between the Son of God and Passion of the Christ, the way that Son of God says, my God, why have you forsaken me? And you watch it in Passion of the Christ, and you just like bawl your eyes out because he's like, I don't. It's not Hebrew that he says it in, because it's like Ilahi. Is it Aramaic? Okay, yeah. Ilahi, lama sabachthani is how he says it, and you can hear it in his voice that he's like you just imagine a kid
For sure.
crying, like if you're a dad, like just imagining you putting your son down and you just walk away.
And he's crying
And
out.
he's crying
I'm not
out.
there.
It's just
That's, oh man,
Oh man.
that's
You know?
insane. Why would you give me that imagery? I hate you.
I mean, a lot of people. One thing that I thought about, how do you portray this, but I think it's just too difficult, is how do you, God watched his son die
Wow.
on the
Yeah.
cross. Like
That's so insane.
he gave up what he loved the most for you and me, and he was willing to make that. So like if I were to ask you, how about you give me your son?
I'd punch you in the face.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
But he said, take my son.
Dude.
Wow.
I love you enough. You can have my son. Now he kind of cheated in a way. He's like, I'm just gonna raise him back from the dead. He's all good, you know. It's kind of all right, but he's God, you know. But it's like the gesture.
I mean, but
Of
even
giving
me
you
as
what
a
he loves
dad,
most.
like knowing that I could raise my son from the dead, I'm still not handing him over. I'm throwing hands.
But what's crazy is that he handed you over his son
Yeah.
for the chance of you saying yes to him.
Wow.
Not even.
It's not even a certainty.
Dude. Oh my gosh.
So that's like, how do you portray that? I was like, I don't even know. You portray God in that kind of way. People are gonna be real pissed. But I'm like, I don't even know how to you portray that. But just the thought of it, it's like, he left.
so
He
great.
he gave me his son because he loved me.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Man.
But yeah, the movie would be very dark and very emotional draining.
It should be, man. I mean,
it was a very tragic event. I'm kind of just spoiling the movie at this point, but the crucifixion, like, there's a scene that I picture that this is one I've always pictured. This is kind of how not just the scourging and beating that he went through, but just like the humiliation. When Jesus was getting crucified, there was like this big post, basically, and how Passion portrays it is that he was a little further down and his arms are down, like this. It might not be accurate. It was part more accurate that it was tall. It's part more accurate that his arms were like up here, where he was tied around like this. Now, if he was beaten and whipped, this is like a stylistic choice that I would love to put in the film. When he was beaten and whipped, this is when you use like your common sense. You wanna go down to the ground, like you wanna fall down. But because of the blood, when blood was on that stone, blood dries really quick. But when it's like layered on top of each other, it's just like it's kind of slippery. Yeah. So he would have been really beaten to a pulp that he wants to take a break, and he would have tried to come back up, but he would have just slipped on his own blood, trying to come back up.
Oh my gosh, man.
And not just that, but the pressure of the gravity when he's being pulled down, the wound on his flesh would have opened up,
dude,
even more so.
Oh my gosh.
And you would have been able to see his ribs. You wouldn't be able to see his like organs and stuff. They I was doing some research and they described the skin come down like ribbons. And it's just like crazy. But if you were like, again, you would be able to see his spine. The worst, I wrote it in the script too, is the sound of the what's it called? His spine against the wood of the cross, because his spine would have been just
dude,
oh my
grinding
gosh,
against
I didn't even think of that.
the wood, and it's just like,
And he did,
dude.
he did that for me, bro, for you.
Yeah. And I think that, like, as you
There's no
described this,
not even the pushing up. Like, we can talk about him having to push up.
like, as you described this, it's also giving me perspective, like, what's at stake when Christian creatives don't step out
Right.
and do things well.
Right.
Like, there's so much at stake.
And that's why, again, I'm really bad with the scripture. Everything that I do it unto the Lord.
No, yeah, and everything you do, whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do, like, do it unto the Lord.
Do it as unto the Lord, because
Wow.
what He did for you.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm gonna give my very best. How the Lord has shown me, and the way that Jesus lived his life. It's like, I'm gonna do my best for him because he deserves it. Like, deserving of nothing less than my best. So it's just like, why isn't everyone giving their best to Jesus? And you gotta check yourself sometimes. Sometimes you're just like, oh, I'll make this graphical quicker. I'll make this, but it's just like, no, Lord, I get to do this because I'm doing it for you, and you deserve nothing less. Yeah. So it's just,
Man, that's awesome. So some of my like, as again, just hearing you like share on this, some of the major takeaways that, like, I guess I want to share is, number one, we can't be comfortable in mediocrity, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have a holy God who is deserving of so much more, and whatever we do, we need to do our very best in excellence, because that's a testimony of His creativity in our lives, but it's also a testimony to those who are watching.
Yeah.
And then just another thing that's really inspired me is what you said about creativity. It's about taking two things that weren't previously together and bringing them together.
no one can put together what you put together.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's just,
And there's like, just real
no
quick,
one, yeah.
there's like scriptural precedents for this too. Like something like we do love the Bible. So in Exodus chapter 31, I definitely blew past Exodus. I don't know where Exodus is. I swear I read my Bible. Okay. So, when Moses is like constructing like the tabernacle and everything like that. Exodus 31 says, the Lord said to Moses, see, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability and intelligence, with knowledge and craftsmanship, to devise artistic designs, to work in gold, silver, and bronze, in cutting stones, for setting and carving wood, to work in every craft. And so there's biblical precedent for God given, like, spirit inspired creativity.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about the spirit filled believer, we have that same spirit of God within us that can inspire that creativity. And it's definitely a gift that's been given. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's awesome is God made us, right? I forget which day. Oh my gosh.
Sixth.
6th. Yes. Oh my God. I was about to say the 7th. I was like, that's not right. God made us, and out of all his creations, I mean, technically, animals can make things. Like a bird can make a nest, a dog can dig a hole. Like, but mankind is the only one that has the ability to make design. Design is what I call the intentional arrangement of creation.
Wow.
Intentional. Like,
Yeah.
mankind has the ability to design with intention.
Yeah.
And which is exactly what God did with us.
Wow.
And what's crazy, this is how I always look at it. When God made something, he spoke it, and it became. When man makes something, it's so when God spoke, he said, "Let there be," and there was, which means he made literally something from nothing. But when man creates, they're using what God has given us and combined it with another thing. So God deserves the glory because, one, he made something out of nothing, and then he gave us something and something to put together. So it's like, oh, God deserves the glory, and that too. So, and what's crazy is that he used that in making us. So when God made man, he made man out of breath and dirt. Those two things combined into one and made us one thing. Even with woman, the breath of God and the rib of man, he made woman. So it's like crazy to show how God works.
Yeah.
Stuff. But yeah, we're the only ones that can. Oh my gosh. But
We're the only ones.
we're the only ones that God has, and it says, God, I've given you dominion, and that's one of the things that God has given us is the ability to create with such intentional design. Like you see some of the things that people make, like watches, buildings.
And I would even argue
Systems.
that, like, even for the non-believer, their ability to create is a testimony to God's creativity.
Yeah.
So, like, you see, and like, I mean, some of the best albums in existence are made by non-believers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but like
Yeah.
also they don't even know it as they cuss and as they say this and that, whatever. They don't know it, but they're actually bringing glory to God in their ability to create, even
Yeah.
if their words may be apart from that.
Right.
Or even the buildings that are made, like
Yeah.
paintings, art, like whatever, you know?
One thing about music specifically that people always like, I get you can use music to dishonor, but music is something that was created by God, and it's one of the only things on this earth that is not of it.
Wow.
When I go, how do you know that? There's music in heaven. There's nothing in
Wow,
heaven that was
dude.
borrowed from earth.
That's crazy.
David wasn't just playing, and God was like, I like that, Michael. You start doing it.
Hey, take some notes, Michael.
Yes. So I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how man was able to get music, but there's music in heaven. It says it in the Bible.
Wow.
So why shouldn't our music be better than it is right now? Not the same beats every time. You know?
Oh my gosh.
What is that?
For real.
No offense, I like the Hispanic music, but right? It's the same thing every time, and it does that with it's the same. I forget the beat with certain rap songs. It's the same thing every
The
time.
same triplet flow.
Yep, there you go. Same 4 chords. Same.
Gosh, dude.
Yeah. And I mean, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of
That's a whole can of worms.
I was reminded of for real. I was reminded of Galatians 1, and Paul he says, if I was still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of God.
Wow.
And I think that's the
Bro, that's a good
main issue. Like just hearing, like I guess my takeaway hearing you talk is our root issue of mediocrity in the creative world or even in the music world is a desire more to please the ears of people or the eyes of people than the eyes and ears of God, who gave us the gift to steward and multiply, right? Because you can make things for people, and you can. We were talking about it earlier. Of I think off camera of we can, or maybe it was on camera, where we can stay on a trend, but we're not really making any trends.
Mm.
And what the thing about trends is they spread like wildfire, you know, and it's a great way to, you know, spread a message. But if you're kind of piggybacking off of a trend that's already made, you don't really get to set the tone of that trend, you know?
Yeah. I help oversee the creative team in my church, and I got to teach him some stuff. And what I always tell the students is, I'll start off with your why. And then, what is your why? If you always start off with the what, then you're not going to get very far. Any product that's made, any thing you're trying to sell, you're not going to get very far if you come with the what. But if you start with the why, that's if you look. That's why people have mission and vision statements for companies, right? And if your why isn't always because this is what the Lord told me to do, and this is for the Lord, then you're not gonna
do it.
Right? And there's times where I've made merch before, and my why was because we need to make money. And why? How do I do that? I'm just gonna kind of take this part. Like I've done the disservice, and I've been like, yeah, that's kind of a straight up copy. But I'm like, but we needed my why was more to we needed to make the money from this, as opposed to I gave it my all, you know.
Yeah.
And it may happen. It happens sometimes, but just try and refocus yourself back to this is for the Lord.
Right.
That's so cool.
And if it's for the Lord, it should be good.
Yeah.
It has to be good if it's for the Lord.
Yeah. And people may not think so, and that's okay. People's opinions, right? You don't really need to care about other people's opinions. Yeah. All you got to do is care about what God does, and opinions are wrong sometimes.
Well, God wasn't recruiting or asking mediocre architects to make the temple.
Dude, right?
He wasn't asking for a mediocre person to play, I think it was the lyre for Saul whenever he needed this tormenting spirit to leave.
Yeah.
Every time he was like, get like
David
like
didn't go in there with
skill
chords.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Go play skillfully before the Lord. Or dude, if you look at the temples that they built, or like the reimagined like temples that they built, like that stuff is insane.
Was literally supposed to resemble Eden. Like that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Like it was supposed to resemble a meeting place between God and man, and that when you would walk in, you'd be like, "I'm not on earth right now."
Yeah,
you know?
and just because it's for God, and I know there's a whole thing like, oh, God knows my heart, and He knows I really want it, but like it should be good. And if it's not good yet, like I understand, like there's a whole process of practicing.
There's also there's also process,
right?
Yeah,
but I if the goal is not excellence when it comes to those things, not that the end goal is excellence, but if the method doesn't end up being excellent, you got to learn from your mistakes, kind of like you were saying.
And then excellence is, again, doing the best with what you have, right? Like the parable of the lady who gave the 2, oh my gosh,
coins,
shekels, because she gave all she had. Like Jesus didn't care about the people that gave all the,
that's good,
however many money I don't remember how much it is, but she gave all she had. Like, it may not be what looks pleasurable to the eye always, but you gave everything you got.
Right.
Boom.
Dude.
I don't know. I feel like this is a good place to land.
This is our longest pod.
No,
right?
and like I feel like we could go on for another hour. This has just been so good.
Wow.
So we're gonna take a quick break.
No, dude.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, if you guys, I don't know if we can shout out. Well, actually, you can tell people where to find you, like any your work or things like that. Shout yourself out.
Yeah, I
Diaz_creative.
Jeremiah.i.diaz is my Instagram.
Right on.
And then I haven't posted on my Instagram in a long time.
You haven't.
But
it's always fun when you do.
Yeah. Usually people will just reach out to me and I do stuff for them, but I always forget to post. I work at Church LV in Las Vegas.
Shout out Pastor Benny.
Shout out Pastor Benny. And my stuff is on the page. I mean, you'll see it. I do a lot of stuff for Pastor Benny also on his personal page. So, but
yeah,
that's fine. Right.
Well, Instagram.
I can't wait to see that film. That will come out.
So if anyone
listens to this and you just happen to be like super rich,
but
so cool.
I have my cast picked out. I don't have my cast picked out, but I know who I'd want to play.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much. Like when we talk, we usually talk about Star Wars and Star Wars.
I can talk about Star Wars all day.
You know, like we'll FaceTime and we'll literally just talk about Star Wars. But hearing you talk about this stuff just reminds me how valuable it is to have people who are creative but who love the Lord. Like creativity doesn't define them; their love for the Lord defines them, and as a byproduct of that, they're creative.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I love you, man. Thank you so much.
Love you, bro.
Dude, this is a lot of fun.
All right.
Whenever I'm back in Dallas,
You can just move
we'll do
here
again.
if you no,
They've been trying to get me to move. They've been trying to get me away from my calling.
Dude, well, thank you, man, for so much. We loved having you on the pod. That's a good takeaway for anybody watching. Be intentional with your creativity because you can partner with the Holy Spirit when you do that. But I think that was a good pod, man.
Dude, for sure.
I think we're good.
If you liked what you heard, like and subscribe, and we hope to catch you at the next episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Peace.